Hi, this is Shawn Parker with Fill in the Blank, and we have a fun broadcast for you today. It's actually a very informative broadcast. Our guest is someone that is well known in the media community and the activities community in Central Ohio, Larry Paglioni. Larry is a person that grew up on the west side and the south side of Columbus. He has deep, deep roots, Vietnam veteran. He's just been he's a person that probably has three twins running around and nobody knows it because he's in so many places at so many times. So welcome, Larry, to Fill in the Blank, and we'd like to talk to you a little bit about some of the great events you've been involved with in Central Ohio and the way that you've actually helped our community develop. So tell us a little bit about Larry, and then we want to talk about, I guess we'll start off with OSU and the Schottenstein Center and how you helped make that happen.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. My background is that, yes, I was homegrown here in Columbus, Ohio, went to Ohio State University. I was what my grandkids call a product demonstrator in the Far East for the United States government. I was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. I came back home, and luckily, I started doing what I thought I would love all of the time is special events. I'll skip forward to what we have done with Ohio State University.
Great. Yeah.
Some of the things that we did were just business related activities. One of the first things was that Ohio State was paying for their tickets to be printed every year.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to offset that cost. So I brought them a ticket back sponsor in the form of Donato's pizza.
Yep.
And on the back of the ticket, you would have Donato's, and then when they tore the ticket in half, you still had it as a coupon to go to Donato's. Another innovation was a fundraiser that we did, which we passed out 80,000 seat cushions. And the seat cushions on one side had the Buckeye song, Carmen, Ohio. And then on the other side, obviously to pay for the seat cushions, we had all the ads that the sponsors had done. Ironically, that is now illegal because you're not allowed to pass out anything to the people that are coming in because they're afraid they're going to throw them on the field. So that was a one-time.
So like
deal.
a giant pillow fight?
Like a giant pillow fight, a red giant pillow fight.
Okay, I can understand. I can understand glass bottles or something, but I'm not sure that seat cushions.
You can fly those seat cushions a very long way.
Okay.
And the next fun thing that we did for the Ohio State University was they needed help selling the. I'm probably hated for this, but we called them personal seat licenses. Similar to nowadays, they're very common in all pro sports. But at that time, we worked under Andy Geiger, and Mr. Geiger wanted a way to pay for a lot of the Schottenstein Center. So we sold seat licenses. Initially, they wanted to have people pay full price up front for the seat licenses.
And that was thousands of dollars, right?
Around $6,000 a seat. So if you had 4 seats, That was 48,000. Pardon me, $24,000.
So a company, you want seat licenses, and that's not floor seats. That's
No,
just because.
no, it was in the club seat,
Okay.
second level, and some floor seats, but the floor seats were like, I think the seat license for the floor seats ranged from $8,000 to $10,000.
Okay.
So what we did was, I came with a plan called the Buckeye Plan that allowed people to do it just like you'd buy a house, $500 down, and then a small amount every month until you were paid off.
So full disclosure here, I'm an Ohio State grad.
Yes.
And they have a great business school, but they had to go outside of their own parameters to come up with this level of creativity.
Well,
I mean, that's a question mark at the end of that.
yeah, the business school. Let's not say this any other way, but they're more of a white shoe, by the book activity. We had to deal in real-time situations because we needed the money
Yep.
to make budget at the Schottenstein activity.
That's pretty innovative. It's creative. It's innovative. It's really, I always say this is the difference between Americans and the rest of the world, particularly Asia. Europeans can't really break out of the boundaries of thinking, and it's our significant strength as a country, and it's because we have the freedom to allow people to explore ideas. And here you have a huge capital investment for the community, the Schottenstein Center, going up at the same time that the Nationwide Arena is being built. Funding gets pinched, and all it required was someone coming in with a very expanded mental process.
And just think of this: I always marveled that in the 1920s we built a stadium, 70,000 seat stadium for a community in Columbus, Ohio that only had like under 200,000 people. So we knew that the entrepreneurial spirit was somewhere.
Yeah.
We just
Yes.
dragged it kicking and screaming forward. So at that time, we did that. I was involved with the university in another idea that I came to them with, which was called a net advertising. That's a company that I came up with.
Mm-hmm.
And we found out that the producers of the television game product for the football team would always shoot a shot behind the kicker, and as he was kicking it into the field goal net. So I came up with an idea that said, hey, let's put an ad in the net, therefore net advertising. That's who I am.
Uh-huh.
And because the average production of the kick was approximately 6 seconds. So from the time the guy hiked the ball, kicked it, everybody jump around, about 6 to 8 seconds. That's a long time for a logo of a company to be done. I learned a very important lesson there that I didn't. I thought people were somewhat honest at that time, but I didn't copyright or trademark that. So a genius on me. And then now it's everywhere, and people do it because they understand that in-game signage, the signage that you see both around the basketball hoop and at the football stadiums, people, now that they have DVRs that allow them to just rush past the commercials. Product placement and signage in game that cannot be DVR'd ahead is very important. And to tell you one thing that we did was there used to be a company a long time ago called LCI. And what I did was I sold the headset with the logo of LCI to the university and paying the coach and the university money to wear the LCI logo on their ear sets, and now that's a common practice as well. So now
Nice.
A couple of other innovations that we did with the university was in their ticketing system. They for a long time would only take checks or cash, and that's where I came up and introduced them to the credit card people, and not just because they were supporters of Ohio State, but they wanted to make the transition as quickly as they could, and take the credit card.
Did you ever give any of these ideas to any of the teams north of Columbus?
I wasn't bright enough at that time to do that. I did work with the university on one innovation that lasted a little less than a year. Here it was an innovation from the National Football League. It was called the World Football League, and they played at Ohio State Stadium. They were the Ohio Glory, and they were partners with the university on rent, concessions, and parking. That I also helped with Andy Geiger and Jim Jones, who was the
Athletic director
then.
Tell me this. I mean, you have you have years and years of experience watching the marketing side of sports in general, and we're going to go into your interactions with professional golf a little bit later. We're going to talk. You've worked with baseball, but let's talk about college football for just a second.
Yes.
Where's it headed? What's going on? I mean, we're paying players now $1 million image and likeness salaries. Coaches are leaving. Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame, which was considered the job that everybody wanted. You never left it for LSU because they're throwing gobs of money at him. What's going to happen to college football? Everybody's interested.
A number of years ago, I was criticized for this, but I thought that a 12-team playoff a number of years ago was seed the first four teams that finished in the top four, then let the next 8 teams play in. I thought it would be 16 teams because here's what happens to you. When you go to the Raisinette Bowl, there are no sponsors there's very few sponsors of the bowl games. They can't sell tickets to the bowl games, and nobody watches these bowl games because they're sometimes irrelevant. So what this new system will bring, at least, is that the bowls will be watched. They'll be able to sell the tickets to these events now that they're relevant and moving forward. And then this allows a stream of revenue to be opened up. As far as the image and likeness activity goes, I have steered my client base away from image and likeness with an individual player. That's because these gentlemen are between 19 and 23. Usually, people of that age, although tightly restricted, sometimes, not always, sometimes make illogical decisions that
Sure.
could embarrass the sponsor. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I mean, they're young kids. Their minds aren't formed. The hormones are in overdrive.
So
It's their first taste of living by themselves, even though they've got all these coaches and advisors and all these people around them. In fact, sometimes those are the worst people they can be exposed to.
Right.
So, it's really a difficult question.
And it's like playing roulette. You think of it as red and black, but unfortunately there's 0 and 00, which are green. So my suggestion to my clients has been sponsor the entire O line, sponsor the entire
Okay, I've never
defensive
thought of that.
backs.
That's actually a really intriguing idea. I mean, no, really, that is a really, because I'll tell you what, the one thing I said when I saw the young man sign the $1 million deal for his image and likeness, who never
from Texas.
played a down at the university, I said, when that kid, he's a quarterback, when the offensive lineman comes to him and says, hey, I need $50 to go buy 3 pizzas for my buddies, and he says, I'm not giving you $50. Later on in that game in the season, there's going to be a play where that kid's going to say, maybe I'm not going to block so hard, and I'm going to go let him get sacked. Yeah. That's the danger of money around sports. So all of a sudden we start losing games, coaches start losing control because individuals become greater elements than their team. Now, we allow that in professional sports, but in amateur sports, and yes, we're still pretending that this is an amateur sporting activity, that's a really different approach. First time I've heard that, Larry. That's pretty good.
And the other powerful pieces, as everyone has been discussing, is the ability for the use the transportal to, I don't want to go to this university, although I've signed with them, I'm here a year. I think I want to go play for Brian Kelly at LSU, or I want to go to Lincoln Riley in the sunshine of USC. I'll just enter the transfer portal and go play there. So recruiting and the ability to keep a youngster or a very young man involved is key. As we say, where is college football going? It's going to be a driven element based on television ratings, because the ratings deliver how much I can charge for the commercial. For example, the Super Bowl, just to give you a little perspective, that brings in an audience of just over 1 billion people, cost about $4 million a 30-second unit. And when you divide, you'll find that the number of impressions that gives your ad, you can justify buying that because it's so many. So the same thing with national finals game this year. The cost of a unit 30-second commercial in there would be about $1.5 million based on the number of impressions that are going to be put out, because that's how advertisers buy into what you're selling.
Okay.
The number of impressions. So it's sort of logical, and everyone will understand it easily, that if I'm selling a female demographic product, and my ad agency brings me the WWE and SmackDown, I'd become confused. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So the ad world has changed so much that we know the silos and what we need to put into that demographic. If you say I want men 25, 35, or I need women 55 plus, it's just literally a formula that's why you see on the news
Sure.
each evening, you might see as many medical commercials as you do anything else on ABC, NBC, CBS, because that demographic is stroking older.
Yeah, you got to target where you need to spend your
Yeah.
money, and you don't want to talk about incontinence products to 20-year-olds because they're not your guys
So
or ladies.
ringing your question back to college football, I believe that everyone is indicating that as we expand the playoffs to 12 teams, a couple of other things happen that are consequential. Instead of playing the Sisters of the Poor in your early season, now that there are 12 positions, you can start to schedule more challenging games because you're not fearful of being outside that top 12. So you might see early matchups between Ohio State and another power because they're not fearful of losing that game as much as they were in the past. So the people that got paydays, rightfully so, people like Bowling Green and Toledo and schools like that, very good schools, but they would come to Ohio State. They were guaranteed $750,000 payout, 1,000 tickets to the game for their use, and then all of the accommodations that they needed.
That was I think that was Governor Voinovich that
Well,
that said, "Hey, let's keep this money in state if we're going to do these warm-up games."
I would agree with that. And as we have seen here very recently, just think of a Christmas tournament, basketball tournament with Xavier, Cincinnati, Ohio State, OU, Youngstown State, Toledo, and I'm probably leaving Cleveland State. I mean, we could have our own Christmas tournament here and just dominate the state and advertising with a basketball tournament. But
yeah, and recruiting would be amazing. I mean, kids would look at that if you promoted it the right way.
Yeah. The next and final thing on maybe football is that the logos that will appear on the jerseys started with it's almost you don't even notice it anymore, but there's a Nike jersey, Adidas in Michigan, various jerseys. Notre Dame has their own supply company, and we accepted those monikers on the jerseys. I think you're going to see that more and more on there. There might be a Hulu or some other jersey patch on there, along with noting the large amount of money that Nike pays not only to the football team but to the basketball, to the volleyball, baseball, lacrosse, and
I mean those football funds a lot of other sports. We know that, and
They
basketball does too because we have a good basketball team. I don't know if baseball ever come close to breaking even up there, but it's important. I mean, you want to have a lot of kids to have a lot of opportunities to play college sports.
Yes,
it's fulfilling and it helps them get through college, frankly. So
That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
And we have to accept that advertising has to help pay for this. So if you don't like the commercialization, then the quality of the product on the field, without money, you can't have the tremendous facilities that you have, and you'll suffer. So you either play in an all-white uniform, or you play with I'm not talking about a NASCAR uniform, but
Will that happen? Will you see? Do you think that college football will eventually? I mean, they have the ability now to inject imaging everywhere. They do it in baseball behind
Yes.
the dugouts. Do you think uniforms will start selling out like Europeans do with their soccer teams, and it'll say "Fly Emirates" instead of Buckeyes?
That's a possibility. I don't know if we'll go there, because
Okay.
we have a lot of other opportunities for. I really hate to bring this one up. I pre-apologize for bringing this up. Okay, but for the baseball people here, as you've seen the large number of advertisers that go into baseball, there's a product in America called Slim Jims.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody's seen it.
Everybody's seen it, and where you and I think that it's the foul poles in baseball, the poles are actually they're in fair play.
Mm-hmm.
So I was involved with a group that wanted I was involved with a group that wanted to go to Major League Baseball and put Slim Jims on all the Slim Jim ad on all the foul poles. So
Makes sense.
yeah, just a possibility. Now with the baseball strike lockout for the first 12 hours here, they'll probably settle it in the next 2 or 3 weeks based on additional revenue splits, just like the NBA did. But advertising, because of the DVR, as we mentioned way back when, where you can watch a game, lots of people do it. Let's let it run 15 minutes. I'll get all the food ready. Oh, now we can watch it. And every time a commercial comes, just run through it. So the on-field and on-player advertising becomes more and more and more valuable.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, it's all good. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. We have our guest today, Larry Paglioni. Larry has been involved in collegiate professional sports marketing for Central Ohio, but really not just Central Ohio, for years. He's encountered and helped develop the sports scene in Central Ohio. And we're just trying to talk to Larry today and get some of his great stories and yarns about how Columbus developed into the great sports town that it is. So let's talk about the Memorial Tournament. You started with the Memorial Tournament on day one, and I guess that was 1975. Is that correct?
Well, we had
How did you get there?
well, I was, as I said, I was a product demonstrator in the Far East for the United States government as a helicopter pilot in the Marine Corps. When I came back to
Product demonstrator? Okay.
when I came back to Columbus, I had a degree in international studies from Ohio State, and in 1965 through 69, I took Chinese. So I thought that I would be the brilliant person that would sell one toothbrush to each Chinese person, so that I would be rich. But Armand Hammer in Canada a guy that does Arm& Hammer baking soda, he had already done that, and so I was out. So
Okay.
I went to work for a racing enthusiast named Jim Truman, who started Red Roof Inns.
Sure. Very famous. Hilliard, Red Roof Inns.
Right. And
Won the Indy 500.
yes, but at one of my relatives was one of his founders, a guy named Dick Robinson, and they hired me out of sympathy to work at Red Roof Inns. But in 1974, there was a very bad recession, and they stopped putting up Red Roof Inns. I sort of worked the angle that wherever we found a Bob Evans restaurant, I suggested that they go next to the Bob Evans restaurant, which is a strategy that they did for a number of years. But in '74, the last hired was the first to be let go during the terrible times. So Jim Truman knew Jack Nicklaus, and Jack Nicklaus's attorney, a guy named Ivor Young, they were starting the development of Muirfield. It was almost complete, and Jim called them and asked for if they'd interview me because maybe they had a job at that time. And I went in, and Mr. Nicklaus and Mr. Young said, "Well, do you play golf?" I said, "No." And he said, Nicklaus said, "Well, that's good because the only person that gets paid to play golf around here is me." So that's worked
pretty
out.
funny. I like that.
And then the next thing was that they said, "Well, have you had any experience in selling event tickets to events?" And then my mind flashed back to Bishop Reedy High School thespian days when I did sell tickets to the play.
Okay.
Okay, and I said, "Of course I have experience in that." And so they hired me there to be
A little confidence in an interview goes a long way. And Jack Nicklaus at that time was already probably the world's greatest golfer when you were talking to him. So
he was.
No intimidation in that room, right?
No. And then, so in the first year, we had what was called back then a broadcast of a skins game. It was a competition between Nicklaus, Tom Weisskopf, Lee Trevino, and Johnny Miller. And it was at that time an astronomical amount of $1,000 a hole. So whoever won that hole got $1,000.
Michael Jordan bets more than that a hole
Right.
on a game, right? So
Yes, and so we had the initial skins game there. At that time, the Children's Hospital had a very big pro-am every year at Scioto to raise money for the charity. And then in 1976, or going into 1976, we asked that pro-am be moved up to Muirfield, and we started the first memorial tournament selling tickets. There's one funny story that I will relate, is that we wore terrible uniforms. They were checkered pants and a green jacket. And I went to downtown Columbus to begin to sell tickets to leading businesses. One of my first stops was at the Huntington Bank at 17 South High Street. I entered the building, and I walked up to the executive floor, and I said I wanted to talk to somebody about buying tickets to the memorial tournament. We were going to have a big golf tournament. The young lady said, wait right here. And I was then accosted by two security guards and walked out of the building.
Because the checkered pants were that offensive in
They were
1976,
that offensive,
right?
But
The fashion police got you, it sounds like.
There was a sign that I guess I couldn't read all the big letters that said, "No solicitation allowed." So I was then escorted out. There was Columbus police that didn't arrest me. I said, hey, I was a little afraid. I said, call Ivor Young, our attorney. He then worked it out, and I wasn't detained for that. So from then on, I did mostly mail and by appointment only, talk to people. So that got a little crazy. But that's that. And then
how did the business community react to the memorial tournament when you first went out selling tickets? I mean, you got Jack Nicklaus, hometown boy, local hero, but you're asking them to spend a bunch of money on something that hasn't happened before.
Never happened before. And although there were events at Scioto, like the first Ryder Cup was at Scioto in the late 20s, and there had been one-day events where pros came in and played. Yes, absolutely. But this was a new monster. It would be over 7 days. The memorial name we got associated with Memorial Day, which it isn't. It was to memorialize the great players of the game. That's why it's called the memorial. It memorializes people that were greats of the time. The first honoree was Nicklaus's personal hero, a guy named Bobby Jones, who founded Augusta National. But to answer your question, it was a new thing for companies. I have to credit, of course, the Dispatch for helping us, Channel 10 and WBNS. But slowly but surely we've been able to. They've been able to grow it, and it's become an absolute fixture in the community. And I'm proud of what I did for the first 20, 25 years of that existence.
So you went out, you sold tickets.
Yes.
How did tell us some stories about? Did everything go perfect? Did everything go right, or was there? I mean, clearly it's the first time you're running a major golf tournament.
No.
There has to be some great history here.
There's some great stories that shouldn't be told on people sometimes, but you would give players courtesy cars, and they would leave them all over the city when they left, so you didn't know where they were, so you'd have to collect those up. That's one.
Okay. Were they Buicks back then? I'm trying to think with the
Pontiacs.
Pontiacs. Wow.
Because,
okay.
Jack Nicklaus Pontiac was on the east side of Columbus. He lent his name to a gentleman named Bud Ewart, and he had a Nicklaus Pontiac, and we got all our cars from him.
Okay.
Some other interesting events were included when Merrill Lynch was very active in the golf scene. They rented a house on the 18th hole, and this is not a joke. They brought a live bull with a handler to the front yard of that place so that their clients could take a picture with the with the bull and go on to the golf golf course. So that was kind of an absolute nut deal there. And then the great people that came by, we used to have a very big event out at the shrine, Aladdin Shrine, where the greats of Hollywood would come in. Sean Connery came in one year. We had performers that would do a big pro-am dinner. It was very, 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 very good for the community to see that we had tied this local event into national personalities. So it was well received at that time. One last point on this. There was a producer, his name was Frank Chirkinian. He is very famous and prominent as a get off my lawn type person. He did all of the first Masters direction. And he was a leading producer for CBS, but he was a cantankerous person, and he wanted to get away from the tournament. As soon as it ended, he wanted to go to the airport. So what he did, amazingly, was he rented a helicopter, or CBS did, and he landed the helicopter on the 18th green area in the fairway, not the green.
Oh, okay.
Fairway.
I was going to say on the green.
No, on the fairway.
But even the fairway up there is like a green at most courses.
And walked from his tower position right to the helicopter, got on, and flew away as the award ceremony was going on. So Nicklaus and Chirkinian were friends, but let's just say not. They didn't exchange Christmas cards. I don't think he didn't like them that much.
That's a little disruptive, I would say.
That was.
So first tournament purse.
Yes.
There was always a story about the check. I don't know if it's legend or legend lore or any truth to the idea that the tournament was scrounging and.
Well,
I mean, because you got so much going on that the check wasn't ready to go that day.
Well, let's go back.
Okay.
Nowadays, you have to have your purse to the PGA Tour office way ahead, usually in January, and that purse is combined from the title sponsor. We, for a number of years, refused to have a title sponsor, and then we got Nationwide to be a sponsor. And in the current position, the players are paid electronically by ACH immediately the next day. So the funds are sent to the PGA Tour office and then paid to the players.
Okay.
In the old days, which you're talking about, all the checks were handwritten checks out to the players.
Who signed the check?
A gentleman named Mike Weiss, who still is alive in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
To say that we had every single dime of every single penny covered for the purse at that particular time on Sunday may have been a stretch.
Okay.
So luckily Nicklaus won the first one. So I don't know if he held the check for a few days or what. That's
okay.
That's legend.
But yeah, I mean that's but it just shows the innovation. It shows the entrepreneurship. It shows the moxie that people had to have to start great traditions.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work. So first tournament happens, you then become you then stay on with the organization for a number of years, right? What was your
Yes.
what was your capacity there?
No, I was in charge of marketing, tickets and marketing,
Okay.
for about 20, almost 25 years. But I was allowed, with permission of Nicholas, to do various projects for various people. There's, I'll just run through a small amount of them. One was called the Columbus 500 Auto Race. It was downtown, through the streets of Columbus, Ohio. Only lasted 1 year. The Ford dealers looked a little dangerous to be doing IMSA cars in the street, but
That was like
Buck
what,
Ryan,
that was what 83,
yeah,
85
Buck
something.
Reinhardt loved it.
Okay.
That was a good one. I've done events that people might be familiar with. I owned, pardon me, the Buckeye Boys Ranch Tennis for the years that it was played, and then went to the New Albany tennis event for the seniors. We did.
That was a fabulous event. Why don't we have that anymore? I mean,
Because it was a very transitional activity because the key players, McEnroe and Connors, Jimmy Connors, had played in the Buckeye Ranch event, then became, as they launched the senior tennis tour,
okay.
which was, if you were
So that kind of
40.
took its place because I
Yeah.
remember going out there and seeing Mansour play.
right.
And, just I mean
He was a fun guy, yes.
I bet so.
And then that tour was owned by Jimmy Connors and his backers in Washington, D.C. And we were an event that was held for a number of years out at New Albany.
Okay.
Then some other events that people might remember. Pardon me. We had a air show at Rickenbacker that
They're forming that right now. Actually, a new air show. I
in
just caught
2000
wind of that.
in 2023 there'll be an air show. It will be handled by Gillen and Associates here in Columbus. I hope I'll be involved, but only by bringing them some sponsors and
You won't be flying a helicopter out there.
no.
Okay.
No. Then there were other events. One I might have mentioned already, but it was Polo for the Arts, which was someone, a gentleman named Bob Hogue, who owned a insurance company. He loved high goal polo, which very, very, very fancy. High goal polo is where people are paid millions of dollars to play it. So we had a Polo for the Arts match out in the New Albany area for that event. Raised a lot of money for charity. I was also involved with trying to find sponsors for an event called Up on the Roof, which was for the hospital, the Ohio State University Hospital.
Okay.
We did a number of charity events. One was an event where Mrs. Nicklaus became very involved with. It was called Festival of the Trees, that Children's Hospital ladies put together every year, where you'd go by.
That was that the Twigs that
The
did
Twigs.
that? Okay, because they always had a great relationship with the memorial tournament, the Twigs, with making the food and the sandwiches.
Absolutely, and that came about by the Twigs would work and still do at the memorial in exchange for hours that are then converted to money that is donated to the hospital.
Did you put that together? Were you instrumental?
No,
in that? Okay.
I didn't put that together. The hospital was that was a carryover from the event that was at Scioto earlier. As I had mentioned, they had a pro-am at Scioto every year for a number of years.
Okay, let's go back to Memorial Tournament a little
Yeah.
bit. Jack Nicklaus, greatest golfer ever, I believe.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your impression as a young guy coming in. What was unique? Because I want people listening to this to identify with what makes special people special, great people great. Was there anything that you picked up on with him as a personality or a drive or something that?
I would say that setting a goal was key. He wanted to have the best fairways and greens, and he held the people that worked on the greens, the greenskeepers, and a guy named Ed Etchels, and then followed by someone that's still here in the community, Mike McBride. They were driven to one goal, which was to make the perfect golf course that was to be set here in the community. The second thing that he wanted was to put on the best event that could be executed, and that came with attention to detail. I don't care if it was the food that was on the golf course, and not many people know this unless they went to the Masters. We copied a lot of things that were from the Masters golf tournament, from the green trash bags that are placed around the golf course to the sandwich wraps, which were green at the Masters and are green here, and that he wanted to emulate the best, which he felt was Augusta. That was one driving goal. And then lastly,
That's a pretty big goal. I mean, Augusta is and I've been to some different golf tournaments around the country. Waste Management out at Phoenix Open, great time, a lot of fun, different environment, but everything. I mean, all you see is branding. It's a party course, but you see the branding everywhere, and it just doesn't have that special feel. Now, you're not going out there for that special feel, but the Memorial has an enduring quality of specialness.
we weren't allowed to put up any signage on the golf course, which is a revenue base for normal golf tournaments. We never were allowed to associate the name Memorial with a sponsor until Nationwide came along, and even the houses that ring the golf course and are rented each year, they have a caveat that they're allowed to rent their house, but there are no signs or advertising that are placed so that they can be seen from the golf course, so that when you come to the Memorial, it's not a NASCAR race where you have all the signs and percolations that way.
So that takes away a tremendous amount of money from the event. Is that for the future of the tournament? Is that going to change, do you think, or can they maintain that level of sophistication? I guess.
I think with the changing of the tournament presenting sponsor to a company called Workday from Nationwide. Nationwide will end its sponsorship last year. Then Workday starts, it'll be presented by Workday. And the reason for that is that Workday will underpin the purse and buy television time. I don't think you're going to see what we call in television the L wrap, which is as you look at the T where the players are, a camera is down. If the players are at 12 o'clock, the camera is at about 8 o'clock, okay, shooting back into the T. And there's called an L wrap.
Okay.
It is on the side and back so that ads are there. Some tournaments even do electronic placements to, they can do this on the television broadcast. They hit the shot and the shot goes down 300 yards, and that pin position of that ball that was hit brought to you by Titleist or brought to you by Callaway. You'll never see that at the, I wouldn't think, at the Memorial.
Okay.
Just to make sure that the point is clear, I made it before, but I have to emphasize it. The DVR, where you can DVR through the commercials, has changed the positioning of advertising on sporting events greatly, because people, that's why you see behind baseball, you'll see.
Oh, yeah. I mean, product placement has to replace all that stuff because people aren't watching commercials.
No, because you'll either pause it to get up and do refreshments or go to the aid station.
Well, I guess even professional golf, though, they allow the golfers now to wear sponsorships on their uniforms.
Oh, yes.
So that was a big change in its day. Bobby Jones would not have approved, right?
No, he wouldn't have. But Jones and Hagen, Hogan, Palmer, all the greats, just to clarify, they did endorse items, but not on the golf course. Arnold Palmer wore his shirt with his colorful umbrella, but Bobby Jones endorsed things off of the golf course, not on it. He had a Bobby Jones, you can probably look it up on YouTube or whatever. He had a number of lessons that he placed on Movietone and struck a deal with the producers of movies to have his Bobby Jones lessons put through Hollywood and sold. They were popular in coming back out in the 70s.
That's interesting. I just didn't think that was what, the 1930s?
Yeah,
20s?
He did.
Okay.
He put his lessons on movies.
So the greatest amateur was actually a great marketer.
Yes, he was.
That's interesting, because the things you read about Bobby Jones, they always really clear. They keep a distance with him as being a commercialized guy.
No, he had a number of books, and also the movies with all his lessons and tips were on there, and so did a number of the other great golfers throughout the time.
Okay, good. Yeah. So, all right, so we're going to have to wrap up, but in terms of Memorial Tournament,
yes.
In terms of sports in Columbus, Ohio, Central Ohio, the state of Ohio, where are we headed?
I think that people want to come back out after the terrible pandemic situations that we've gone through, and it's just logical. Think of the events that you took in over the past 6 or 8 years. Red, white, and boom, for example. That was a quick 450,000 people downtown that we haven't had for because of the pandemic.
Yes.
I believe that the investment that the crew has made in Central Ohio with the $100 million that they've put down there, we now have an NHL team. So just to take 1 second to go back, remember that the Memorial Tournament didn't face all of we had Ohio State as a competitor for ticket money,
Yeah.
but nowadays you have more choices on where your entertainment dollar can do, and instead of having no arenas to have shows and events, now you have at the same time, within 1 year of each other, you had two. Schottenstein and Nationwide came out of the ground, plus the beautiful minor league ballpark of the Clippers. So you have a lot of pulls on your entertainment dollar. You have to be able to read the public and deliver what they want. High quality football, yes. High quality golf, without question.
Okay.
And I think we have we're a hidden secret in the sports world, because people think of Columbus, Ohio, but our footprint is like almost 2.5 million people if you add Marion to the north, easily Zanesville to the east, down to Chillicothe and over to Springfield. We have a very large footprint, and I'm encouraged to see the development of sports and entertainment in the Columbus marketplace.
Good. Well, I'm going to ask one more question. A young Larry Paglioni coming out of Vietnam, walking into Columbus, Ohio, would you take that meeting with Jack Nicklaus from Jim Truman and do it all over again?
I certainly would. It's been, of course, life-changing for me. I remember the statement that I made in the beginning of this podcast that said, when I was asked if I played golf, I said I did not. He said, "Good. The only person that gets to get paid for playing golf is me." And to this day, I'm a easy 36 handicap, so I'm all set.
Okay, we're probably even on that accord. So, hey, Larry, thanks for joining us. Okay. I think this is great. You know, people need to. We're trying to highlight some of the folks that don't. Your name doesn't pop up on the news, but these are the people that make Columbus a great place, make Central Ohio a great place, and young people need to learn from our life lessons. And thanks for sharing that with everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for giving us your time to listen. You've been listening to Fill in the Blank with Shawn Parker, where we talk about the issues of politics and the geopolitical marketplace, as well as economics. If you like our channel, please subscribe to us at Fill in the Blank on YouTube, and be sure to listen every week as we come back to you with some of the most thought-provoking people of the day. And learning is always the key to what we're trying to do.